In today's episode of the Pathway Presents podcast, I have a very interesting guest here with me today. I'm with Jack Foster, and she's heading over from the team over at WorkRamp. WorkRamp is an interesting platform. Basically, to describe it very simply, it's an all-in-one learning platform. And today we want to deep dive, what that all entails, what it really means, but also how Jack is thinking about growth for the company. So welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. Excited to be here.
Of course. Yeah. So maybe give us a quick overview in your own words. What is WorkRamp all about?
Well, you said it nicely. WorkRamp is an all-in-one learning platform. And so what that really means is that we enable organizations to scale learning across their entire business. So learning experiences, we power learning experiences for internal employees, for sales teams, customer education, partner enablement. In the past, there have been a lot of niche solutions that kind of can only service one of those teams. And our all-in-one platform allows us to, again, scale learning across the entire organization. We really look at learning as a growth engine for businesses today. If you're investing in your team, setting them up for success, your team and your customers really can become unstoppable. And so, we are here to help propel businesses forward in this new era of work. And learning, all things learning at WorkRamp. So that's WorkRamp in a nutshell.
Very good. Maybe tell us a little bit about the types of companies that are using WorkRamp. What is there a sweet spot? Is there a certain employee number that they should have? Maybe tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, great question. So we are working with companies really from the SMB all the way up through the enterprise. We don't look at ourselves as kind of a one size. We are built so that we can, work with smaller teams as they scale, and also work with larger teams that are invested in learning. So a lot of our clients are across different industries. We work with tech. We have clients in manufacturing. I mean, we're working with clients really across the board because all industries really do need learning, right? It's not just kind of a one size fits all. So there's that part of it. And then from a buying perspective, the main, buyers or champions from our customer base are really around first learning and development, HR, people teams. So as you can imagine, the teams that are responsible for kind of overall employee experience. How are you, thinking about career development within your organization, leadership development in your organization, onboarding employees, internal mobility. So those are some of the things that our L&D and people teams care about. We're working with revenue enablement. So you can think about, getting your sales team set up for success, right? They need new product training. They need to get certified on your new pitch if you're thinking about increasing win rates. And so we work with a lot of revenue teams in that capacity. And then on the kind of external learning side, customer education and partner education is also a key champion for us. As you can imagine, customer education is really on the rise, especially with the growing function of customer success, right? Customer education is a huge part of how companies are really thinking about scaling their customer success teams, but also it's a new way to really generate or inspire, I guess, your customers to become advocates for your brand. When you're, investing in your customers, they can really, they really want to partner with you, and that's how you build strong relationships. And so those are really the main buyers that we're partnering with when we're thinking about, the organizations that we're going after.
That makes sense. What would you say, like, who's the champion typically within the organization? Like, who's holding the flag high? Is that, a learning manager? Does it come from an operational side? Like, where does it come from, the signal within the companies?
Yeah, I think it's going to depend sometimes on the size of the company, right? And also which team is buying. So a lot of times, it are those key buyers that I mentioned, where it will be like an L&D manager or a director of enablement or a director of customer education. Those are oftentimes kind of our champions within the organization. But there's also, from an executive standpoint, there's also a lot of need from executives to kind of be investing in this type of motion, right, for their companies. And so while, yes, the champions tend to be kind of within, those titles that I mentioned, they're often working with their C-suite, like a CRO, like their VP or SVP of customer success or chief customer officer, like their CHRO or chief people officer, to really, put learning front and center in their businesses.
Makes a whole lot of sense. How do they learn about WorkRamp? What's sort of their typical journey or the key client acquisition channels that you guys leverage?
Yeah, so we, from a strategic perspective, are very focused on community. And so building community is, something WorkRamp has been great at really since it was founded, honestly. So there's a couple ways we think about building community. First is that we have a very vibrant customer community. And so, every customer that partners with WorkRamp is invited into this community. That is, we run it in Slack. They have the opportunity to connect with other customers, share best practices, ideas. They have access to the WorkRamp team. It's a really vibrant and active community. And then, that's kind of the day-to-day of it. We also, are building a lot of customer programs, things like quarterly roundtables for customers to come share ideas. We do a quarterly product event. So, really investing in our customer community is a huge goal of ours. And that really leads to, a very strong word of mouth and kind of customer referral channel. So that's definitely, one benefit there. We're also invested in kind of the greater learning and enablement community at large, though. So we have partnerships with several communities across the different personas or audiences that we're selling into. We recently actually acquired the Enablement Squad, which is a premier community in the revenue enablement space. And that's really with the goal of, as the enablement function is continuing to evolve, we want to give enablement leaders the resources and tools they need to go be successful, to get better at their jobs. And, we're very much invested also in really providing stellar resources just to anyone that is looking to educate themselves and get better at their jobs. So if you go to, workramp.com, you'll see we have a very robust blog. We put on a lot of thought leadership content, highlighting customer stories. We're going to be doing, a big virtual thought leadership conference later this year. These are all the ways that we really, are trying to create brand affinity, create awareness, but also really give back to, buyers. And through all of those channels, then, you start to see inbound rising, or through all those strategies, I should say, you start to see inbound rising on some of what you might call like the demand capture channel. So of course, we're invested in, places like paid search, optimizing our website, really thinking through SEO, but these things kind of all work in partnership, right? You need to be kind of, the building community is actually kind of the North Star for the marketing organization.
That makes sense. How do you think about the website? Like, what role does the website play in your perspective on their journey?
I mean, the website's like the front door to your business, right? So it's a huge, important asset that, does a lot of things, right? It helps go tell your story, right? We're out here talking about how learning can be a growth engine for your business. What does that really mean? So helping kind of take customers through that message and story is a big part of it. Again, going back to some of the resources, we want to make sure, people are not, I think there's some stat out there that says like 3% of people are in a buying journey right now out of, all of your buyers out there. So you still want to give people the opportunity to interact with your brand and get value out of your brand, which is why we, are invested in, really strong content. So that's a huge part of it as well. And then, people that are ready to buy, it really, we want to make the process as frictionless as possible. So of course, we give people the opportunity to, speak with our team off of our website, demo requests, but we try to make that process as easy as possible, whether people want to fill out a form, if they want to, schedule directly with our team. People that are in the buying journey, we want to, don't want to slow them down. We want to get them what they want, so we can make their lives easier.
That makes sense. I mean, you spoke about the buyer's journey there. Sort of what do you think, like, because in general, like a lot of marketers we have on the show, they're very critical with their website when it comes to the buyer's journey. Like, where do you see sort of as a strength versus where do you see even room for improvement when we're talking about the buyer's journey on the website?
Yeah, I mean, I think that strength is actually one of the things I already mentioned. So we try to make the getting in touch with our team as frictionless as possible. So one very tactical way this comes out, you go to our demo request page, you can, schedule a demo through a button, or you can click this other link that says, get directly on the calendar. So, you don't even have to talk to anyone in the organization to schedule. You can get right onto our AE's calendar to have a meaningful conversation. We also don't require qualification, for example, through our BDR team. Our BDR team is there to help, our inbound BDR team, I should say, is there to help, get information so that the AE can have a really powerful first conversation. But we're not going through like BANT qualification when someone comes, through our website. We, again, with this idea of getting buyers, right into the conversation, that kind of speeds up. So I think that's definitely a big part of our buyer journey. I think, I think that we still have opportunity to continue to make our website more robust, right? I think we're going to be looking at, doing some more things on the homepage, like how can we, tell our story even more effectively on the homepage, really looking at like beefing up some of our product pages and things like that. So, I mean, I think, the website is kind of one of those things that's never done. You're never going to like have, you should always be investing in your website. You should always be testing things. And so that's kind of how I think about our website.
That makes sense. Yeah, now that we spoke about sort of growth for you guys, we spoke about the product, I'm curious to learn a little bit more about yourself, right, as a marketer. There's so much content out there for marketers. Where do you personally like to educate yourself? Is there certain platforms, go-to resources, peer groups? Where do you personally enjoy to educate yourself as a marketer?
That's a great question. So first and foremost, I kind of live on LinkedIn. I think we've all seen the transformation of LinkedIn becoming kind of, a place where you used to post your resume to now a place where people are sharing valuable content about, their learnings, their insights, their ideas. And so I spend a lot of time on LinkedIn, following different business leaders and, obviously marketers as well. That's probably my number one resource. I also make a point to connect with several marketers just kind of out in the wild on a monthly basis. I have that can come in a lot of different forms, introductions from, people in my network. If people reach out to me and want to have a conversation, I usually take that conversation. I'm saying this on a podcast now, so, I'll probably maybe get some ass there, but no, it's really, I think it's always really great to connect with other marketers because you always can share ideas, validate, or, you get, maybe you think, oh, that's actually not the way that I should be thinking about this. So that's always a great way to do it. I'm also part of a community called the Emerging Leaders Syndicate. So that's a pretty active community where there's a lot of business leaders, a lot of idea sharing there. And then honestly, I have a couple of mentors who I work really closely with and, connect with at least one of them on a monthly basis and several of them on, at least a quarterly basis. So all of those things combined, always be learning, right? That those things all kind of are ways that I am continuing to try to push myself and learn about new ways of marketing.
Very cool. I got a couple of rapid fire questions to wrap it up for today. Are you ready for those?
I think so. Let's try.
Very good. What is the last book you read?
The last book I read, oh man, I honestly haven't been reading a ton lately, but I did start reading a book by Tim Sanders. Actually, he's like an evangelist out of Upwork, and it's called Deal Storming. So it's all about how the entire organization needs to kind of rally around if you want to kind of get to these like 7-figure plus deals, how it doesn't, it's really the entire organization that needs to rally around that and how you can think about that. So that's probably the last business book that I read. Yeah.
Very cool. Was it, would you recommend it for people to read?
Yeah, and Tim Sanders is awesome. I also follow him on LinkedIn, and he does a lot of we had the opportunity at my last role at Momentive to do some workshops and stuff with him in virtual, but in person virtual. And he's a fantastic, just a fan. He pushes you to think kind of differently. So recommend
Very
for
cool.
sure.
Very, very cool. Now, what's the one single thing that your company is focused on the most at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's a couple of things. It comes back to what I was talking about in the beginning, right? Building community. When you take a step back and think about kind of the learning management system space, it's it's a crowded market, and there are a lot of players in the space, and also the way that an LMS has kind of been thought about in the organization. I think we're trying to redefine that, right? I think going back to what I said in the beginning, learning, if you're investing in learning, you're investing in developing your, workforce. That's a huge strategic thing that can propel your business forward, right? And I think the LMS it can be one of the most strategic investments that you make to power those types of experiences. And so, we're trying to reshape and reimagine what the LMS is to organizations, and we want to go out and tell that story. And we're doing that through all of the things that I already talked about. So that's probably kind of like the North Star goal for our organization. Yeah.
Very cool. If you could fix one thing for your role as a marketer, you have, there's no boundaries in technology, you have a magic wand. What's the one thing you would fix for your role as a marketer?
Gosh, probably some magic way to really deeply understand attribution, because I think, this is probably an argument that could, or a debate you can have with a million marketers, right? Like, how do you measure attribution? And I think the kind of answer is you can't ever really do it perfectly. And so, as marketers, we know, and I think, a lot of business leaders know that you need to be out there creating demand, and you need to be, telling your story on channels that you might not be able to tie back to real business results. And so, perfect magic wand, you'd be able to see every touch point. I read that on LinkedIn. I heard you on this podcast. I, did all these things. That would be pretty amazing, but, we do our best and, figure out the best way to measure things as best we can. So that's my wish. Maybe one day.
Very cool. And for the very last question, if today would be your first day with WorkRamp, what's the one advice you would give yourself for your journey with WorkRamp?
I was thinking about this question. I think that I did a lot of prep work coming into this role. I've been here for 10 months. And one of the things I actually went out and did was talk to several leaders that had been kind of the first marketing leader at an organization of our size. And so I think I got a lot of really great advice actually coming into the role. So maybe I will impart some of that wisdom here. One of the things that I would say is, make sure that your priorities are aligned with the business priorities and your CEO's priorities. I know that sounds obvious, but it's really important, especially coming in as, the head of marketing, to do that. I would also say hire super well, especially, you're only as good as your team, right? And so make sure that you're, making sure you're getting the right fit, for your stage of company, for the job that needs to get done. I think that's super important anytime, but also, especially when you're in, the leadership role. And then I would also say you can't take on everything at once. I think when you're at a Series B, Series C company like WorkRamp, there's a million things that you want to do and could be doing, but I think it's super important to prioritize, like, what are the 2 or 3 things that you're really going to put your resources behind, because what happens when you don't do that is it can get very chaotic and thrashy. And so being super clear on, like, these are the 3 things we're going to do this year, and that's how you actually make decisions about resourcing, has been really helpful as I've been in this role.
Very cool. Jake, I really appreciate you took the time with us today to be a guest on Parks and Events. I want to give you the very last word. If somebody would be forgetting all that we discussed about WorkRamp today, what's the one thing they should remember?
learning is a growth engine, and you should be investing in learning. It's what's going to propel your business forward, and WorkRamp can help you power that. So
Thanks a lot for being a guest on Platform Presents.
thank you.